Okay, so got this pose here. I think you want to I know you wanted to revise the cloth wrinkles. But before I do that, um, I'm making a few modifications. I'm making several modifications of the pose. Um, namely that I'm changing which shoulder is facing us. I'm changing this elbow over here, and then let me see if I can size this down. Should have drawn a frame. All right, so let's see, frame-wise. There we go. The reason why I want my frame is because I need something to kind of act as a guideline as to where on the page I want to place my um, where on the page I want to place everything. You know, this way I don't wind up running off the page, because you might want to have multiple drawings on the same page. So you know, every time you start a drawing, it's good to have a frame. You know, if you're just starting out and you're not quite warmed up. Now I can take the gun and prop it up against her foot. And let's keep that arm straight. I'm going to straighten this arm out. Okay, so, you know, I'm not worrying about clothing at this point in time. I'm just not at this point in the drawing. I just want to find the base pose, the nude pose without the clothing, just because the clothing itself really, how you draw the clothing is greatly going to depend on how you've drawn this figure. So, pardon me for being quiet. It's actually taking all of my concentration. The more I talk, the worse I draw. Let me get an eraser on knockback. Okay, part of the reason why I put this, why I switched it around and moved this shoulder, you know, why I've kind of taken this elbow and moved it closer. You know, I've just kind of opened up the body pose. You know, I'm aiming this shoulder towards her, you know, because putting the hand on the hip, when you put the hand on the hip, usually the side that your hand is on will go up. And so I'm moving, you know, this side of the hip that is up towards the viewer. So I'm, you know, making the tilt go that way. This is, you know, part of that body language, just opening that pose up. You'll notice that I don't care about the knees when I'm drawing. If I'm drawing a straight-legged pose, I don't even worry about the knees. I just go straight from the hip down to the foot. You'll notice I also don't worry about the knee. I don't worry about the heel as much as I worry about the toe. I do the toe first. The heel comes afterwards. And then with this other leg, I just okay. What else do I need? And do not worry about line quality, especially if you're taking animation. You're dealing with animation. What matters most is how the character stands, how they hold themselves. Line quality is something for a cleanup artist to worry about, and we're not at that stage right now. So, line quality, rendering, those are all later things you can do after you've got yourself a solid rough drawing. Okay. I'm more or less satisfied with this. Let me see if I can just see that. Like now I can go in and I can put in that. Like I'm adjusting it. I'm going from the rough to the more refined line. Right? I can find the body lines that go over. Right? I think of anything I can just knock back and redraw. Knock back does not mean that you completely erase lines. You just get yourself a big soft eraser and knock it back. Maybe I'll have the heel come out the other way. Better. So when it starts to get a little messy, that's fine. You just knock it back. And you put the lines that, are meant to stay there. So if you use the knockback and redraw, you can just go over a drawing a gazillion times and refine it until it's exactly what you want. In fact, I'm not going to bother drawing every single toe because it's just not about the toes. And in the end, I'll probably wind up having drawn a boot over all that anyways, so it's pointless. All right, so that's one leg. Now I'm going to do the other one. And knock some of that back. Right, so you see that I'm separating the big toe. There's like this big mass of the big toe, and also the blade of the foot. Right, and from there I isolate the big toe itself. And some simple division. In fact, if anything, I should probably see the other foot. Oh, it's okay, I guess. Yeah, I'm just trying to keep them some level of symmetry. Got to make so the foot are roughly the same size, despite, the distance difference, which is really not that much. Feels a little truncated. Let me make the adjustment. Let's get a better foot silhouette in this. All right, so you make a foot silhouette, zoom out, you see if the silhouette works. If the silhouette works, then you're okay. If you're not, then just erase the silhouette and try again. Then you take a silhouette and you begin to carve it, and you carve the forms out of the silhouette. Okay. Well, I mean, that is how I'm working right now. Not the way to draw, but it is a way to draw. That little circle I just added, that's a circular, I call it it's an elliptical plane. So if I have something like a cube here, sometimes I use ellipses not just as masses like they do, traditionally with animation, but it's an inscribed ellipse. You can think of it like a thumbtack, right? It shows direction. So sometimes I use ellipses not just as masses, but I use them as elliptical planes. I do this instead of using actual, cubes and boxes just because, I mean, it's easier to draw an ellipse, to be honest. And they can easily be modified into fingernails. And the thing is that just as you can take, like, doing a box takes 1, 2, 3, 4 lines, doing an ellipse is one. Just the shorthand, it's faster. All right. So I'm more or less satisfied with this pose. It'll do for now. Now for the clothing. So what I'll do is I'm just gonna quickly stick this on a layer so I can isolate these. In your case, you can use an onion skin. First thing I'm doing is I'm going for the concaves. Concaves are where you have this concave, like a cavity. It goes inwards. I go for the concaves, and that is where I add my wrinkles. Well, not always, but that is kind of a key point that I look for. Same thing around here on the waist. Another. Yeah, right around here where the crotch is, you're going to get some. It's there's one. There's two. So this is different, right? This is a cloth wrinkle on the edge of form. This is a cloth wrinkle on the center of form. It's like if you have a cylinder. So I'm going to draw the cylinder slightly bent. Oh, yeah, let's just bend it. Okay. So a cylindrical form, it's going to have its outside, got the inside, like that. That's what I've done. And now right here where the outside is, I start very light on the outside, sometimes non-existent. The reason for that is that there is a greater distance on the outside. There is compression on the inside. It's because this cylinder, if you don't bend it, theoretically has the same amount of material on one side as it does on the other side. When you bend it, if you bend it, let's divide this into two squares. If you bend it, this is what happens. We draw one square here. That is the bend corner on the outside. This is the inside bend corner. Right? This and this were once here and here. Now they've moved corner B and corner A. Corner A is now over here. Corner B is in here. They've crushed into one another. And so now you've got your material has to do this, while the rest of the material is doing this. That is why the wrinkle is occurring there. And so that is all I do. If you want more wrinkles, you can, then my suggestion is knock that back. Okay, you can add more wrinkles like that. Then they go back to this there. This is the point where they are stretched the furthest. So that is how I handle my wrinkles. Now in this case, because she's wearing pants and the way that pants are typically constructed, let me undo that for a second. I am going to go straight across on here. Let's see. You know what? Screw this layer stuff because it's really cramping my style. Because I need to be able to knock through all that. So you probably noticed that when it comes to doing, whenever I show you something, you know, it's not the only way to do it. If it's not working for you, then you just cut it out and you do something different. You find what works for you. You have to be flexible. This is what I call mental flexibility. I'd love for all of this stuff to be carved in stone, like following the instructions on a box of Betty Crocker cake mix. But if this stuff hasn't been written down anywhere, well, or if you're doing something new for the first time, if you want to be a pioneer, well, you got to be flexible. Maybe I don't need more wrinkles than that. Maybe this one's a little too convex. I can probably tighten it somewhat. And now, just for clarity's sake, I'm just going over this and adding modeling contour lines. fact, in this case, I'm going to break that line and move it underneath. Reason for that is to suggest, I am suggesting that this line is going inside, that there is a wrinkle that is going underneath this line here. So this is the hidden stuff right here. Okay, so it's a hidden, that's the cross section of it. That's why I break the line. Let's continue. All right, so before I go down and deal with the rest of the pants, I'm going to put in the boot now, just because the boot is something that is tight against the skin. And as such, it will serve as an anchor point. Still the same technique. All right, this is just a giant wrinkle. If you want the cloth to look more like silk, then you use a lot more rounded curves on the contour of the, on the contour of the wrinkle. If you're using something that's more like heavy denim or leather, more angular. I imagine you're going for the latter. I'm just trying to think how baggy I intend to make these pants. And whether or not I want to do something like give her knee pads, which are also going to be tight against the skin. In fact, now that I think about it, I think I'll integrate the knee pad with the boot. Why knee pads? Because this is a sniper rifle. A lot of times you're going to find yourself spending time on your knees. It gets really, really uncomfortable. They're not knee pads for kneeing people in the gut. They're not knee pads for sliding around like tactical knee pads. They're there for comfort. They're sniper's knee pads. But you got to be quick to bail on a design if you get a new idea. Don't get too precious. You know how they say you gotta be able to kill your babies and move on. Like this is that principle in practice. You just saw it. Something doesn't work, then you just got to drop it and move on. And you might do it 2, 3, 4, 5 times, 6, 7, times in a drawing. It's just about being flexible. All right, so that's one pant leg. I keep it baggy and loose here because it's much more flexible. You want to bend that knee joint. It's much easier. This type of denim, it's tough fabric, but if it's too tight there, it's going to bunch up real bad on the inside of your knee. It gets really uncomfortable when you're trying to go down to your knee position. So the aspect or the mental mindset of not just worrying about how do I draw this, but you worry about the practicalities of fabric. You worry about the practicalities of the things that they wear and what it's like to be that person, using that stuff. That is the essence of design. You have to approach things from the point of view of the user. You have to, if you're designing clothing, you have to think about the person who's wearing them. They have to be comfortable. The clothing has to be functional. It can't hamper their movement unless, the clothing's not about movement. This clothing is not designed just by a tailor. It is requested and designed by the Army in this particular universe. I'm adding fasteners now, just all right. So looking at the boot, the kind of spats that you have going on here, putting the line of that over there. Same deal, the way that I approach. That's how I'm putting in, the wrinkles around the side of the boot. Okay. Most times you don't have to add wrinkles. Like, you add only what is necessary if you're trying to get visual readability. Plus, when it comes time to animate it, you won't have 5 bazillion wrinkles that have to be carried through frame by frame. It just gets too crazy. When it comes to modeling it, you don't have to worry about extra polygons. I mean, yeah, the system could handle it, but I mean, somebody's got to put those wrinkles in. Let me knock this back. Trying to get that wrinkle plane. There we go. All right. I think I want to get some sort of border edge going on these knee pads. Either a border edge or maybe a liner. A border liner might be better. I don't know. Let's try a border edge. So right now it's just a very simple border edge. If you're looking to make it more ornate, and you can add a motif. Let me think for a second. right? So that would be a motif that you can now, once you've worked out that pattern, you can replicate it. And you can use it in other parts of the uniform. In fact, it's very important that you do, so that this way it helps with the symbolism, any kind of, army symbols. In this case, I'll actually put in a bit of a screw head on that, kind of to show that it's hinged. Now I'm just adding additional. Okay, so there's that. Now I have to add the tread of the shoe. And there's a seam between upper of the shoe and this tread. Put the spats back in. Round those out. Add a highlight. We can try stagger. Right? It's too much detail, then you just undo it. Okay, so this contour is starting to look a little too extreme. I'm going to try and round it out. I'm going to smooth some of this stuff out. Yeah, I'm not liking it. It's just not reading well. I'm going to simplify. The thing is that you have to be able to enter and exit levels of detail. Right. So what I did is I just took this thing down several levels of detail just now. I got rid of a lot of the, stuff that was just confusing it. I zoom out, I look, and I see, is there anything that just feels like it's kind of missing a bit? I add that stuff back in. Okay, so we have this kind of a line here. Maybe I can yeah, let's do that. And then right here, another place for the motif. And probably do it on the other side as well. Like a logo. Right around here. And add. I don't know. I'm thinking of some kind of fastener or strap. Or maybe what I'll do is I'll just go with the same line of buttons that you have on the spat. I want to move those buttons in further. The only problem with those little tiny buttons is that they do come undone rather easily. So, well, looking at what you've done, I mean, there's some things we can probably borrow, like the fact that they're not just snap-ons, but they're more like the actual buttons that go through holes. So we'll use a button eyelet. If you're working digitally, you'll see how I'm doing this. When I use a tablet, I zoom in, I pan it. My hand does not move. I use the panning to adjust the centering. It's like factory working. All right, if you're a factory worker, you find these ways of making the process a little more repetitive, and it allows you to deal with these long lines of buttons. And if you make a mistake, well, then that's just too bad. Better. Let's see what else I can do. This line here, this was the leg line itself. I'm going to get rid of it. Now I will find the middle line. I'm adding a seam to the clothing. Okay. Now we have a seam on the clothing. Now for the sake of clarity, I'm going to knock back, redraw. That's a seam line. The outer contour line. Seems like she needs some sort of belt. Feel better. Some things I think I'd like to do back here again. That's the other thing. Sometimes if you found that you were having difficulty, you just leave it and move on. You'll come back to it. Maybe you might have different thoughts. It's amazing what, a 10, 20 minute, 30-minute gap will do. It'll give you time to think about it. I'm just showing curvature by using shading. and I'm only doing it on the distant leg for now. Just in fact, I don't even know why I've got that there. Let's just get rid of it. It's ruining the simplicity of the drawing in a bad way. All right, move on. So she's got double button down. Well, I detect that there's going to be a problem. Right here, a little uncertain how this area has kind of gotten all muddied up. I have chosen to put in a belt. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a judgment call here. Because I need to deal with the junction between how that coat and how that belt are going to be friends with one another and not wind up in mortal combat trying to kill each other. I'm going to have this thing kind of transition into a bit of a flared outside. And yet I still want to have room for a belt, like a gun belt of some kind. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to, let's see, we can put it under. We can have something which is slanted. Slanting actually works well, because at this point I can add a holster. The holster is also nice in that it follows the slant of her hip like that. So I'm using the pose as a means for, I'm using the pose to inspire the clothing. I imagine that in this era, for someone who's kind of all steampunkish, we should probably have a revolver style holster. There's often like a hole at the end of there, and then the barrel can poke through. I should probably have some reference up right now, but I just not in the mood to go digging for it right now. I think pretty soon I'm just gonna have to. I give. Uh, images.google.ca revolver holster. Lovely. Here we go. Okay, yes, let's use that. Okay. My God, that's a big gun. I'm leaving it alone. I like it. Okay, so there's also this stitching that goes around the border. I'm going to draw some really, really big stitches. They don't go over the top edge. They go over the bottom edge, though, because the revolver holster fabric, it's all made out of one piece and it's folded over at the top, and then it's joined at the bottom center. I'm going to, yeah, get rid of that seam line. There is no seam line up there. Probably not the most accurate revolver holster or revolver ever, but it's just, I don't want to spend too much time on it right now. That's your job. All right. So she's wearing gloves. To be honest, from this particular era, you know what kind of gloves I like? I like the maybe more like the General Custer era. She seems a little more Wild Wild West to me. So not little motorbiker gloves. Yes, the insignia. You have to repeat the insignia whenever you can. Time to knock this back. Right, the double line of buttons. So same deal. Oh dear. I'm gonna try not to have a button like right there on the line. I'll start from there and move down instead. Do you notice how I'm trying to draw the tilt of the button? You know, this means the button's pointing right at you. In this case, I'm trying to adjust for the geometric tilt of the fabric. You know, did you just see what I did there? I had to go turning. This is like basically pointing right out at you. Now it turns. It turns. How far up does that go? All the way up to the top. All right, I'm going to do the same over here. Notice I'm making adjustments again. Don't go drawing each line as if it's your last. I mean, make adjustments when you see you see it when you see fit. Let's see. Let's do some more. Oh, now we got to make it symmetrical. So that means that I have the other side of buttons in view at all times. Okay, you know what? Here's what I'm going to do. To ensure symmetricity, I'll do the bottom one. I'll do the top one. Now I'll do every other button. Okay, now in this case I can't do because it didn't divide by 2. There. That's how I ensure symmetry. Sometimes you can do things sequentially, sometimes not. Let's do the one that's curved. In this case, see, I got to, here will be facing you. Over here will be facing to the side, like that. Right here, I'm going to have to do a little bit of curvature on it as well. A little bit. And I should do every other again. No, you don't. I'm not putting the button where the nipple is. Like, just, I know you were thinking about it. Don't do that. In fact, I'm seeing a lot of stretch here. So I think I'm going to move that line in. I'm moving the border line of the centerpiece in on purpose. Kind of keep it under control. Try not to have it split out so much. Better. A little better. It's a split of the difference. I'm okay with that. And then I'll do a border line or border edge. Some kind of border fabric. Well, that's kind of cute. Don't know if it fits though. I mean, for all you know, I mean, you can go for like a full-blown battle skirt. That in itself would be kind of cool. I think it kind of ruins the. It goes against the look though, so I'm not going to do it. I thought about it, and I decided against it. I'll just keep it straight. But I do want to put some sort of stitch, or I'm going to show that junction. Just kind of acknowledge its existence. Ah, right. I totally forgot. We have a holster here. Better. And then, of course, maybe one more line as well. Just secure that. Secure that firearm. Yeah, I'm being kind of sloppy with these stitches. All right. I'm thinking. All right, see this kind of a semicircle U shape that I just added there? It has something to do with the tailoring of the jacket. Plus I can do some there. I can use that as an area for the cloth wrinkles. Right, there we go. Plus, up here, this gives me room for rank epaules. Right? So you can do that. I'm just mirroring the style of collar which you have chosen, as I see it. You've done your homework for that part, so I'd be a fool not to use it. I'm carrying this around. I'm using this armband as another part where the fabric is tight. Once again, the rank insignia. Maybe over here. Let me make some adjustments for the junction between the shoulder. Yeah, let's deal with that shoulder junction now. And that's it. Clean and simple. Actually, all right, now I'm going to smooth out these bits as well. They're a little too, they're out of control. Right, they don't have to carry all the way up. I mean, they can, but I'm not gonna. Plus, this isolates the trapezius. No, I say trapezius, my goodness. I meant the deltoid. Trapezius is up here. Like I say, the more that I talk, the worse I draw. So, entering radio silence. Anyway, it looks like we've broken about an hour. That's about all the time I have today to talk about this subject. At least I did one side. For the most part, you can just mirror a lot of the things that I've, a lot of these things just get mirrored over to the other side. So it's just, going to take more time. But hope that helps you with figuring out, fabric, cloth wrinkles, and how to simplify all this stuff.